Okay, 3 ways or 3 different types of session to get faster and fitter and try and break 1:30, which is a really respectable time for the half marathon. So half marathons are brilliant. Like, the more that I've done longer races and used marathons for training and done 50k, 100k and onwards, and the less you can do with those races. But with half marathon, 10k, 5k, it's brilliant. 5k, 10k you can do every weekend. No problem at all. You can rock up to your local race and race. And with a half marathon, every 2-3 weeks, you can go all out and test yourself with a half marathon. So the improvement curve can be really steep, and you can improve a lot in a very, very short time, especially if you think and put some structure into your training, and really kind of be methodical in your approach to going faster. So first of all, the key session that you need in order to be good at running a half marathon and to get the absolute most out of your body is really strong tempo run. So the half marathon is all about speed endurance. You want to be quick, but you want to have the endurance. So speed endurance sessions or tempo sessions or lactate threshold sessions, it's all about playing with that zone, which is kind of around 80-85%, sometimes 90% of heart rate, of max heart rate, and just pushing that line upwards, which basically that line is the line of no return, the line where the buildup of lactate within the blood is too much for the body to be able to clear it. So your body kind of goes into and we've all felt that when we're doing faster intervals or when we've just gone into the red in the race. So you're basically playing with that line. So a great tempo run would be about 20 minutes and you're hitting that at half marathon pace or ideally faster than half marathon pace. And that's coming in, as I said, like 80-85%. And the reason those are great is because you can build from there. So you start with, so let's say 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then you build from there. So I would do a 20-minute tempo session, have 60 seconds, 2 minutes in between, then do another 10 minutes. And that would be 30 minutes of half marathon focused tempo session at that pace. So I start to become as comfortable as possible at that pace. Really important. And then the extensions from there, you could do 2 times 20 minutes with a couple of minutes in between, or even 1 minute in between. And gradually you're doing more and more of that distance to a point where your hour and a half at that pace, which for an hour and a half in the half marathon is 4:15 per kilometer or 6:50 per mile. So you've got to be working with those paces. So remember, always look at the target and work back from the target. So what's the target pace and how do we play with that with the different sessions? And why that's important is because you want to feel as comfortable as possible at going at race pace. So you're as comfortable as possible for the first 20 minutes, 40 minutes, hour and 20. And it's usually that last quarter where it starts to get really tough and you have to dig in and finish the race strong. The next session, which is super important and often overlooked by runners, especially long distance runners, is the speed sessions. So you could call them speed intervals or VO2 max intervals, but basically what you're doing is, a typical session would be 8 times 800 meters or 6 times a kilometer or 12 times 400 meters, 15 times 400 meters. The progressions from those are very simple. But what we're trying to do from there is we're trying to get our heart into the red. So we're trying to push it into zone 4 or even zone 5 and really go at it. So that's around about 5k pace for us. And a lot of people forget to work at that level. But what it does is it makes that second pace, that half marathon pace, feel really comfortable. So your biomechanics get really, get very attuned to running fast. And so in that second gear, everything feels very easy. And it's just like in a marathon where at 20 miles it gets tough or at 30 kilometers it gets tough. You want to keep the half marathon so you're finishing and you're starting strong, you've got middle which is strong, but you're finishing strong, which is where you the wheels fall off, that's where you're going to lose the most time. So speed intervals, start something really short. I love hill intervals. So if you start with something like 10 times 250 meters up a local hill, really get your heart rate into the red, warm up thoroughly, so there's no kind of easy first or second interval. You're right into that session, and then from there you do 10 of those, then you increase the distance a bit. So I might do 10 times 250 meters, then the next week I might do 12 times 300 meters, and I might do 10 times 400 meters. And then if I'm on the flat, I'll do 600 meter intervals, and then 800 meter intervals, then kilometer intervals, then up to mile intervals. So we want to be doing between 3 and 5 minutes exactly. But if you're new to them, you also want the body not to be too much of a shock to the body, to the point that you're going to get a niggle or an injury. So you want to gradually move into that speed type of workout. So if you were to go out there and just do 20 times 400 meters without doing speed training for the last 12, 24 months, you're obviously going to run into issues. If you do too much speed, too many hills, or too much distance, that's where your injuries come in. Yeah, so you want to avoid injury and naturally progress into speed, and gradually over the weeks you'll find yourself getting faster, but make sure that the progressions of those interval sessions, those speed interval sessions, are very, very gradual. So as I said, I would start with something really small, like 10 times 250 meters, next week 12 times 300 meters, next week 10 times 400 meters, next week might be 8 times 600 meters, and then 2 times 1 kilometer afterwards, and then move from there up to about 5, 6, 7 times a mile, and that will be then my key speed interval sessions. And then that closely mirrors the longer lactate threshold intervals that I throw in later on in the season, but we'll get to that in another video. Third type of workout that's really going to propel you forward is obviously the long run. You need to be, it doesn't matter how fast you're trying to go for an hour and a half or an hour, whatever your target time is, an hour and 5, an hour and 10, an hour and 15, an hour and 20, an hour and 40, it's all relative to you, this. So figure out the times, and you're playing with the speeds, and you're working at your 5K pace for the speed intervals. You're working at your tempo pace or half marathon pace for the tempo run. So for the long run, it's about building strength, so that you've got the strength again to finish strong. So that if you break the half, I love to break the half marathon into 3/3. So you've got the first 7 kilometers, the middle 7 kilometers, and then the end 7 kilometers. And that first 7 kilometers, you're kind of feeling it, your way into it. You're feeling strong. It should feel very, very easy. Middle 7 kilometers, you're kind of digging in, but it's feeling a little bit more difficult. But you're still digging in. You're still comfortable. Then the last 7 kilometers is usually where you really need to dig in, and it's usually that last 5, 6 kilometers. Once you get after 15 kilometers, or once you kind of get after 10 miles, that's when you really need to dig in. So long run, how long should it be if you're running a half marathon, and if your target race is a half marathon? Personally, what I do, whether it's a marathon, whether it's a half marathon, is go to that distance. So why leave any surprises for yourself on race day? Like, make sure that you start in, again, comfortably, like the speed intervals. You're starting with a 40-minute long run. If you've not done long runs for a long time, think about what you've done more recently. So if you're used to running an hour at a time, start at an hour, then just gradually increase. So an hour and 15 minutes the week after, an hour and 30 the week after, an hour and 45. Maybe even go past the half marathon. There's no problem in going up to kind of building gradually up to a 2-hour long run, even if your goal is to run a half marathon in an hour and a half. It's a lot of strength that you're going to have for a solid half marathon, so that you can focus on pace and you can focus on hitting those splits in order to get a sub 1 hour 30 half marathon. Bonus tip I would say is these are, you got to, everything we've just spoke about is based around heart rate. So you want to go into zone 4, zone 5 for your speed intervals. For your tempo run, you want to be 80-85%, and that's what you can run your half marathon at. How are you going to judge that? If you can go off your watch and it will give you your heart rate, it's off. It's incorrect. It's not accurate. So this will give you so much more data than just your heart rate. It's going to give you stride length, your cadence, your ground contact time, and other stuff as well, left and right imbalances. It's going to give you so much stuff, which is super important. But for the sake of $80, £80, however much this is, it's going to last you 5 years. This I think I've had 5 years at least. It's been through some of the hottest weather you could possibly imagine. It's just a change of battery it seems every 6 months, every year. And what's that? Like a third of the price of a pair of shoes these days, a pair of race shoes. That's going to be a really good training tool. If you want to go a step above that and be really serious about your training, then get fit and go to a specialist lab, an endurance lab or a running lab, and ask them to do a lactate threshold test. Usually the makeup of that will be 5-minute intervals where you see where you can kind of get to and where your zones are. Difficult to explain in layman's terms, but essentially things will be really easy for you. You'll probably start off at like 8-9 kilometers an hour. You'll find it really easy and your heart rate will be very, very low, and then all of a sudden you'll see it double, and that will be kind of your zone 3, if you like. And then all of a sudden it'll go 4 or 5 times or more than that. It'll just go off the charts, and those are your 2 lines that you want to play with in order to push them up, in order to be able to go faster or put more effort in so that you can move faster and get faster times. It's as simple as that. So once you start working strategically, and if you find a good exercise physiologist, which there are plenty of in the US and the UK, wherever you are, you're going to have a running community, and somewhere in that running community will be a university or a sports lab that can test that lactate threshold. And when I tested that and then started to work to lactate threshold, then that's when I got major results. So those 2 bonus tips, I give you 2. Heart rate monitor, make sure that's on your chest, especially for your key sessions. And the second thing, if you can, go and get a lab test, lactate threshold test. It's probably going to cost you $150 to $250, £150 in the UK to £250, and it is worth its weight in gold.